In this lesson, we're going to take a look at rendering our stereo camera. So rendering the stereo effects is rather simple, but before we get to that, let's introduce some animation onto the stereo cam rig so we can get a sequence to see what working with a stereo sequence is going to be like. So keying a stereo camera is just the same as keying a normal camera. Just go to the transforms and just key the translate and the rotate. So at the first frame here with the camera at this position, just tap the K key with the stereo cam rig selected to key the translate, rotate, and scale. We don't have to worry about the scale, just make sure your translate and rotate is keyed. Now I'm going to move forward to maybe the 48th frame here, and I'm just going to go ahead and just pan this off to the side, maybe rotate it just a little bit, and I'm going to press K to key those values in. So now we have a very slight camera animation on here, and we'll go ahead and check out rendering the sequences with this. So if you want to render your stereo effect, introduce a new mantra node and ask it to render with the stereo cam rig. It's as automated and as simple as that. Just go to the render menu, create a new render node mantra. The mantra node will be dropped in place. Just change the camera parameter setting to use the stereo cam rig. You can type it in place or use the choose operator to do that. Just pull that up, select stereo cam rig, hit accept, and you're good to go. That's really all there is to it. Just hit the render button and let it render out. Rather than have you wait, I'll be back once it's done. So there we go, it's churning away. It's just about wrapped up, and as you can see, it's rather quick. And there you go, there's the stereo effect rendered out very nicely with mantra. And that's really all that's there to it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this is basically the preview result of the stereo effect. You actually have two channels in this image, and the interesting thing is you can save these channels out separately. So you can just go to the file menu and use either save frame as or save sequence as to do that. I'm going to demonstrate how to do that with the sequence. So I'm actually going to render this out as a sequence. So here's how you go about rendering a sequence of files. I'll close this out. And what you need to do is you need to go to the properties tab here. And by default, the output picture will send it to the mplay. And you don't really want to render out a sequence that way. You want to render it out to a hard drive location. The thing to keep in mind is the way you're going to name this. So I'm going to save this out to my current project files, which is the hip folder. And I'm actually going to create a new folder in there. Right now this is my particular hip folder. I'll just pull that in. I don't have the folder, so I'm going to right click, create a new folder, and I'm going to call this renders, and I'm going to save it to this particular renders folder. So let me put that away. I'll save it to renders / and now here's a good way to name this. We can name it after the particular setup, so I'll just call it scene, and now $F for the frame number. And then you'd normally put the extension in here, which I'll call pic for now. But as opposed to doing that, you can put in another period. Putting this other period will help you differentiate between the left eye and the right eye being separated. So something like this is a good format for rendering out a stereo sequence. The name of the file, the frame number, 2 dots there, and that's going to help you basically separate the left and the right suffixes that's going to be added to this. Alright, with that, hit enter. And now I'm going to go in here and ask for the frame range. I'm going to ask it to go from 1 to 48. And I'm going to hit the render button. Mplay will not pop up. Instead, I'll get the dialog that helps me keep track of my renders here. And when I pull up my renders folder, you can now see how it's adding those prefixes in here. So the suffixes of left and right. So now it's rendering those. And now I can double click the left image as it's being rendered. Let me pull that in. So here's the left image. And now I'll pull up the right one. I'll put that in here. And here's the right image. So left and right, like so. You'll notice that it's not really one's like a red channel and the other one's like a blue-green. That's something that mplay does automatically to preview the results. We'll actually learn how to set up a proper compositing network in the next lesson. But for now, let's let this particular sequence render out, and I'll be back once it's done. Alright, there we go. The sequences have been rendered out. We have one for the left, one for the right. And if you want to preview them, this is actually a very interesting system of doing that. Let's check it out. So I'll pull open my left image here in mplay. Let me go ahead and pull that in. And it's interesting because if I were to go ahead and open this, I can open this as a sequence. I can open my left sequence here. Load it in place. Little issue here. Let me just go ahead and close that. Let's try that again. Alright, so I have my sequence here, but you'll notice there's no stereo effect and it's only basically the left channel. Now I can load my left and right channels individually, But if I want to preview them with the stereo effect together, this option I need to use is actually open stereo pair, not just open. You'll go to open stereo pair, and you need to select the left sequence for the left image and the right eye sequence for the right image. So you can use the select file to do that. When you do that, show your sequences as one entry, and now I'll select left for the left channel or for the left eye, the left images, and I'll select the right one for the right image. And once we do that, we can load both of them, and the anaglyph preview mode will be turned on. And now you can view the whole sequence like so. So there we go. That's really all that there is to rendering a sequence of your stereo files. Just basically render them separately, and then you can view them together and preview them with the open stereo pair like so.